Hey guys, Master RKC Josh Henkin here, and I wanted to talk to you and show you a couple of drills that will really improve your movement quality very quickly. So a lot of us think that the best way to get more mobile or flexible is to purely stretch. Well, as you can tell by reading the article, that activation is one of the key things that we're going to consider, especially core activation. So the simple concept is this: the more stable our body feels, the greater our freedom of movement it will allow for. So we're going to show you a couple of different drills that will show you basically how to activate the core best. And these are going to be drills that necessarily you won't feel your abs burning or things like that, but we're going for deep intrinsic muscles that will also help your nervous system, your software, perform at a higher level. So let's check out these drills. Alright guys, what we're going to start off with is what's known as a dead bug. So you may have seen dead bug in corrective exercise or rehab type programs, but it's a great exercise for anyone, really, because what we're going to do is work on pelvic control. So basically how your body's able to control your pelvis with your extremities moving. And the other thing we're going to do is work what's called cross patterning. So what you'll see when people walk or run is that my opposing limbs work with each other. For example, my right arm works my left leg, my right leg works my left arm to propel myself through space and give myself stability. If that doesn't make a lot of sense, it'll make sense when I show you basically a dead bug. So when I'm in the dead bug position, as you guys may know it, my opposite limbs move together. So the further I move back, the more challenging the exercise. But what I'm trying to do is maintain control of my pelvis and not have any movement. Now the trick is this: you want really activation of your lat, core, glute, and obliques, that chain of muscles. So it can be hard to do if you don't have a lot of training background, maybe you had an injury, or you just don't know how to turn on those muscles in general. So actually adding load in the form of the kettlebells can go a long ways in helping that. So I'm going to show you a few easy variations to use. Now you're going to use very modest sized kettlebells. You don't need to go too heavy, but we're going to press them both up. I'm going to actively squeeze them, and when I do that, that helps me activate my lats and set my shoulders in place. I'm going to bring my legs up, and all I'm going to do initially is slowly try to drop my heel towards the ground. Just by doing this is going to be a challenge for a lot of people, keeping their pelvic control. Once I master that, I can actually add that cross pattern. So drop the heel and the opposite arm with a press. Now what I'm doing is I'm keeping the lever arms kind of short at first, so I can get the coordination pattern, but also sync up those kinetic chains. Over time, I can make it more challenging by extending the lever arm of either my arm or leg, or together like this, bringing it back, and the further I get to the ground, the more challenging the movement. Now, I like my hands so that my palms are facing each other, because if you turn your palms this way, it can be too much load upon the shoulder. Here I can really activate that lat, and I can gauge how much range of motion I want to achieve. So a great drill you can use, and based upon your ability level, lots of variations so that you can be successful and get the most out of this drill. The next drill we're going to perform, you may be already familiar with, is a kettlebell halo. Now, a lot of people unfortunately do the halo wrong in that they go too fast and they don't understand the purpose of the drill. Yes, it's a great shoulder mobility drill, but we're actually trying to resist movement in our trunk. So what we're going to do is start in our kneeling position. Now, kneeling brings us in a position where we have to use our core greater than if we were in standing. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to actually use our toes into the ground. Now, you're going to find some people that recommend toes flat. That's fine, but that to me is an enhancement, because when you press your toes in the ground, what you'll feel are your hamstrings and glutes becoming very active. And those are muscles that are part of your core as well. And especially as we're trying to not move our body as we move the weight around, we want to make sure we're engaging as much of the body as possible. So I'm going to take the bell, palms up, and what I'm going to do as slowly as possible, I'm going to try to break the handle apart, keeping the elbow close to my rib. I'm going to keep my hips extended. I'm going to pause right behind my shoulder blades. I should be pressing the ground, not going to lumbar extension. Drive my elbow in the ribs, coming back around. And the slower you move with this type of drill, the better the result you get, because there's going to be less compensation into the movement. So again, because we're going for neural enhancement, 3-5 reps at most with this type of movement. Make sure you go both directions. Now, what you're going to see me do in a moment is a very similar looking drill to the kettlebell halo, but it's our ultimate sandbag around the world. And one reason that we believe our DVRT system and the ultimate sandbag are such a great tool to use with your kettlebells is because they do things slightly differently. So while we have drastically different drills in some cases, this is a case where a similar looking drill creates a very profoundly different effect. So we call these kneeling around the worlds. The concept is the same, but what you should see is the range of motion I attain during the drill is drastically different. So I get a much larger range of motion using the ultimate sandbag than I do with my kettlebell. Now, whenever we can, increasing the range of motion in drills like this is going to activate more muscles and give us a stronger result. However, when should you use either one? You're going to find people have a hard time not able to resist rotation or extension of the body. So a kettlebell can be very handy in shortening that range of motion to introduce the concept of movement. Instead of just going heavier and placing more stress potentially on the shoulders, we can use ultimate sandbag, increase the range of motion and get more out of your activation. Now, if you've been training for any period of time in general, but especially in the RKC, you'll be familiar with using the glute bridge to enhance things like your swings and even your deadlift. Because basically the glute bridge is your most fundamental hip hinge pattern. Starting on the ground, it teaches us how to drive force in the ground using our glutes and hamstrings to extend our hips. However, it can be a very challenging exercise for a lot of people to do correctly because a lot of people move to the lumbar spine. So what we're going to do is show you a couple ways that we can actually use this drill with load to get you a better glute bridge, which in result is going to help you with your deadlifts, your swings, your snatches, and so forth. So what you have to understand is this, and this is why it works. When I apply load in the manner I'm going to, my lats, my core, and my glutes work together. So when I walk, you notice that my body works in opposites. My opposite arm moves with my opposite leg. That's because that chain works together to produce motion. So when I'm on the ground doing this, I want to stimulate the same thing. So you guys already do it when you do your deadlifts, your swings, and so forth by training tension on the bell and getting your lats active. So we're going to do the same thing in the glute bridge. So again, don't go too heavy right off the bat. And again, if you can go heavy, you probably should be doing more standing work anyways. So I'm going to bring my kettlebells in. Now, I'm going to press them out. What I'm going to focus upon is not extending my hips, but pushing through the ground, gripping hard, and actually keeping my wrists in a nice neutral alignment. By pushing to the ground and clenching my glutes, I'm not worried necessarily how high my hips get. I'm just creating whatever extension I have. Come back down. Again, I push through my feet, just like I would my deadlift or my swings. I don't get that low back arch that you would normally see. So again, it's a way that you can activate the natural changes in your body and you get better movement. All right, guys, just like in the Halo and the Around the World series, we can use different tools to create different stimulus. Now, the Ultimate Sandbag is going to let me do some things I initially couldn't do with the kettlebell, and vice versa. So again, nice to have complementary tools within a system. So what I'm going to show you is a really dynamic way of doing your glute bridges. Now, the Sandbag brings something unique because I can actively pull the handles apart, which gets me that lat engagement and core engagement as well. Now, many of you are familiar with progressing to single leg work. Now, what I could do is I can increase the challenge with my kettlebells too by going overhead as I bridge, but I'm going to show you something a little different. So, what we're going to do is keep tension on the handles, bridge up single leg, and what I'm going to do is add a diagonal pattern. Now, as I talked about in the article, diagonal patterns are really natural for the body. They stimulate that cross pattern that is so important for our natural movement. We can make this more challenging by extending the range. So we go down by the hip, I'm pushing my foot in the ground, and I pull apart and come across my body. So really activating the same type of motion as I would in walking and running. So it sets a really good foundation for my more complex exercises that you'll do in your training. These are wonderful drills to do as part of your warm-up. Sometimes it may be corrective exercise stuff, or you may want to insert them in part of your strength training if you feel like you're struggling with some of the ballistic or more complex movements in both the RKC and DVRT systems.